Hey, The Midnight Walk is a narrative horror game by the developer MoonHood and features a character called Potboy, who is pretty much what you get if you combine Sackboy, a Pikmin, and Stitch into a character. But he's a pot, so already I'm in. But to make it even better, the entire game is a Claymation stop-motion style. Now for me, Claymation and adorable mascot character, that's like my two favourite things. So picture Nightmare Before Christmas, Studio Ghibli, and a movie called Mad God, that you may or may not have seen, and you have this game's atmosphere. And it's also pretty damn scary. This video is what I like to call an immersive narrative analysis, which means we're going to be going through the entire game, immersing you, the listener, into its world and characters, while I'll be adding my thoughts and analysis of the themes, the story, the characters throughout the entire video. You get the idea. If you enjoy the video, you can support it and me by liking, subscribing, and commenting. I'm always there reading your comments. Thanks as always for the support, and this is...
After the end of the world, the Burnt One woke from a deep slumber, broken, deaf, and blinded.
This story begins with our character called the Burnt One, waking up with blinded vision. Banging on what appears to be a door. We move forward, making out shapes and sounds, but obviously we're blind. Reaching the end of a hallway, a small humanoid creature takes out its eyes and gives it to the Burnt One.
See with your eyes.
Now we can see, and what we do see is a grim, dark world and tall, red, overbearing hands reaching up with a single white eye in the palm, but no pupil. It turns and follows our gaze, never blinking, but always watching. And already we have a perfect atmosphere being created, the feeling of being watched or judged. And with a name like the Burnt One, we can create a theory of our character being damaged, scarred in some physical way. We see another humanoid creature this time with ears that gives them to the Burnt One. With now us being able to see and hear properly but never gain the ability to speak, it seems the Burnt One is going through some kind of rebirth after what we've only been described as the end of the world. We find a weird bell creature, but get distracted at seeing the vast overbearing landscape, strangely shaped houses and mountains covered in a mist, and the hint at some kind of light setting in the distance. We walk further on and a new mechanic gets introduced to us, to close our eyes and listen for hidden things. Doing so, we hear weird whisperings that will lead us to switches and keys and pretty much stuff like that. We listen, then hear a jingling sound finding a green key, which naturally opens the big glowing locked door. And we walk further on, but a strange bird-like creature on a branch maniacally cackles, then disappears into ash. Up ahead is a large oversized box of matches and creatures sleeping in the dark, cowering. It's obvious what we have to do, so we light the match and create a fire that all the strange creatures then huddle around. Fire seems to be a key part of this game, not seen as destruction or danger, but warmth, comfort, and ultimately, life. Our narrator then tells us more about this strange world.
The spark had once again been lit. It was told that for the being who kept fire in their heart, all darkness would vanish. Nevertheless, this long night seemed endless and fraught with perils.
The Burnt One matches the description of fire in their heart and that all the darkness would vanish. This gives us an idea of the purpose of our character, to vanquish darkness, which covers this entire world. We light more candles, and in doing so it opens up a door, But before that, we go back and take another path, past oversized objects like bottles and cans that we would find in the real world. The whole place has a Pikmin type vibe of small creature on top of a desk or in a shed or in a garden. Inside the structure is what the game calls a shell phone. Listening to it, we get to learn more about the story, and this is one of my favourite parts of the Midnight Walk. Similar to how games like Corpse Party, Bioshock, and Souls-like games tells us its lore by exploring the environment. In Corpse Party, it's dead bodies you find. In Midnight Walk, it's hearing the thoughts or recordings of older memories, which then has us try to work out what happened, in which we might not always even get a direct answer. Like this one speaking of something called a ragdoll, which the speaker is, and something meant to remain dead, which ended with the burning of everything around them to create light. Something we are learning is very valuable and sought after in this world. We walk down what appears to be a cave, but the whole place goes black and begins shaking as two intense white eyes look around before locking onto us. It disappears though, and we continue on, coming across a circular door in a cupboard which contains one of the collectibles in the game. 3D models of the characters in this case. The ragdoll described as a mocking echo of the two-legged ones that were. This is interesting, hints that maybe it's resembling humans, which have died out by now. Or maybe a form of humans, since there is two-legged humanoid creatures in the game. But they do look different to how a normal human would look. Then we hear some weird growling, and turn to see a horrific monster running at us. We try running back, however we can't, and get a pretty brutal death. Then lo and behold, we revive coming out of the Iron Maiden. This also might be what we exited from at the very opening of the game. We now get introduced to one of the first stealth sections of the game. At heart, this is a stealth game. Majority of what we do is running and hiding from monsters. This crawling enemy patrols back and forth, and I mean, it really does keep going back and forth. However, it's also got aimbot or something, because these enemies go right to where you are quite a lot of the time. So, like always, we get eaten and killed. We can sneak in the game, which does help, but a lot of the time just making runners seems to be the tactic. We run into another cave system, and looking at the enemy, it kind of resembles the ragdolls, only it's on 4 legs and has a very different face. And it's much larger. In the cave is skeletons and a big glowing light blue eye. We close our eyes, and when we open them again, it's disappeared. And a way through the cave has opened up. However, as we move to it, one of the crawlers wakes up and starts chasing us. The cave closes in behind us, and we find another box of matches. Opening another hole in a tree, we find the soothsayer's figure, who jump from work table to work table to make sure things are what they're meant to be. So this whole world is called a work table made of clay. And from this we know there are other work tables, so potentially more games. But we continue on and see a pot creature sitting in the middle of the path. We crouch down and see it has a face and a spiral fire in its chest. But the creature isn't moving. Taking a match from a nearby box, we light the top of the pot creature, and it slowly comes to life with an adorable face. But it looks scared and starts backing away, turning round in fear before running away from the burnt one. So we chase after it. Running up a pathway, it hides in a can and won't come out. Unsure what to do, we read on a floating note of paper. There's a drawing of the creature calling him Potboy, and he likes coal as a treat. which is lucky for us because it's right in front of us. We take it up to Potboy and he eats the coal, then comes out and looks at us and gestures for more. He's not scared anymore, but he wants more coal. Probably to keep the flame on the top of his head burning. So we go back, take another piece of coal and give it to Potboy. And now he's our best friend and we will protect him with our lives. Potboy then runs ahead of us but waits for the burnt one to catch up as the haunting soundtrack of the game plays. We also find one of the other collectibles, vinyl discs of the game's music. With Potboy, we can light up the darkness by simply burning it.
In the midst of darkness, lo and behold, a friendship kindled. The fire that spread with it seemed so small against the vast night sky. Small and flickering, but defiant.
As the player, we command Potboy to light stuff up or go through pipes, which in turn knocks down a bridge. He's kinda like a big Pikmin. On the trees, we find another shell phone, this time telling us about how this world was built, mentioning the creators being called the Craftsmen.
With wire, clay, and fire, the craftsmen built the foundations, followed by the trees and the rocks. And after them came little houses for us tiny ones to cower in, for existence was so big, so vast, that without a roof above one's head, one could have fallen straight into the skies. And yet, with all that stuff, they didn't know what to do with us. So I reckon that's why they built the Midnight Walk. For us to wander, for lack of reason.
Interestingly though, it mentions the Midnight Walk also being something that was created, with the speaker having a theory of its purpose to just give the inhabitants of this strange world a place to wander. We do some simple puzzles with Potboy standing on levers and learn of another gameplay mechanic to hide from the monsters in wardrobes. Another floating piece of paper tells us that the dark itself is the key, and to close our eyes when we see an eye. The darkness being the key is actually symbolic of one of the main themes of the entire game. We spot a crawler but quickly enter the wardrobe, which we can peer out of. Thankfully, Potboy also instantly hides, mimicking a natural part, whenever an enemy appears. So we don't need to micromanage him too much, which in this game would probably have become very annoying. We light more candles with Potboy to open a door, and a lot of the puzzles is simple stuff like lighting a fire, but it works. Another shell phone explains more about the crawlers, which are creatures that, as well as eating us, they also consume fire.
It's true they do, but most of all they feed on you. Don't you know? Howdy do. Didn't you hear? They eat you too. Fire, fire, aye, it's true.
Now, why do we need to know that? Well, because we can use the fire to create a distraction while the crawler consumes the light we just lit. So we do exactly that, lighting a candle, drawing the crawler away, and make our way further into the darkness. So far into it, we actually encounter the literal darkness appearing with its mad eye and sending us down into the caves below. Potboy was also extinguished into his pot form, but we can always relight him with matches or fire. Fire equals life, not just destruction in this world. We leave the cave and the game's title appears, The Midnight Walk.
And so it was that the burnt one and a small flame took a wander down the Midnight Walk.
A creature starts speaking to us, a body with two heads, talking about how it's the end of an era, and how our Potboy, implying there's possibly more, is the last one of the worktable. The creature called the Soothsayers tells us our purpose is to spread Potboy's fire at the top of Moon Mountain. It seems simple enough, and that's the goal of this game. get to the top of that mountain.
You Potboy must spread his fire. Walk now, spread your fire. Walk, walk, walk.
A narrator explains that when the sun disappeared and it got dark and cold, people simply started walking.
There wasn't much left to do, and it was quite enough to simply put one foot in front of the other.
Potboy spots a strange house and beckons us to go inside. Lighting up the cauldron with the fire, we get told this is Housey, our wandering home, and where we can view the collectibles of the game, reachable from the main menu at any time. The place is decorated with strange drawings and vinyl records and figures, which we'll find out more about later. We exit the house and it comes alive, literally standing on 4 legs, and then simply starts walking, following us as we go on. More crawlers appear, as does a new mechanic, hiding, which I'm not gonna lie, it rarely ever works. So it's always just better to go into wardrobes, or in most cases make a runner if you're spotted by any of these things. Crouching through logs to escape in front of us are button puzzles, which let us go further into the crawler caves, which wakes them up as they try escaping from the large eggs they were born from. On the opposite side of the log is the continuation of the walk, and a vinyl record of Grands, the song that's kind of the main theme of the game. We use Potboy to launch him at a gate, and we open a bridge for Housey to get across, and continue following us. The Midnight Walk's path, while being a straight line, never sticks to that, having whoever walks on it go into many different side paths and places, but always returning back to the main path eventually. As they walk on, a strange creepy bird creature emerges from the trees on the hill, screaming before scurrying back, a foreshadowing to what comes next. Under a book by a pile of matches and a fire is a skeleton-looking man with a long pointed hat and a banjo. This creature is called the Soul Fisher. He tells us about the actual walk and how it kind of has a mind of its own.
Fire? Hey, I'd almost forgotten how it felt. And salutations, burnt one. Fancy meeting one of your kind here. You're the caretaker of this little firecracker? I reckon you must be headed for Moon Mountain. Am I right? Well then, on one hand, it's just a matter of walking down the road. But then on the other, the Midnight Walk has a mind of its own, and a mind to teach its rider a thing or two to boot. So if you are intending to walk the walk, you better... Housey! Didn't see you there. So glad to see you back on the move. And as I told you, it ran away from its owners. It's been waiting for the right passerby ever since it ended up here. Well, Mac, don't let me keep y'all.
He gives us one last piece of advice. Keep the fire alive, no matter what.
Keep that fire alive. It's really all that matters. Don't take my word for it. Just see for yourself. Some folks certainly know how to talk the talk. What you lack in talk, burnt one, I trust you make up for in walk.
Walking on, the whole walk suddenly twists and contracts into a large pair of white eyes and just pure darkness. It lasts for a bit before revealing the path in front of us has now changed. Completely. Now it's less visible and a cold wind is blowing. To the right of us, a strange contraption. To the left, another shell phone.
I lost my way again. It's getting dark now, but the dark is a well of ideas. A blank canvas full of possibilities. The dark itself is the key. All it needs is a little spark, and then I get what I need. it hungers for fire. So I take a match, I light it, and I offer it. I give it freely. I have to surrender.
An interesting and unique way to describe something as vague as darkness. With this information, we can conclude that we have to give the dark an offering of light, and it will give us an idea, presumably. So we take a match and we throw it into the abyss. And leave behind a key that was given to us by the darkness in exchange for fire. We use Potboy to light up a big furnace of fire, pushing ourselves up, which reveals the information we worked out by, I don't know, just listening to the game. So we already had the key, which let us solve this puzzle. Entering through, text appears saying, "The Tale of the Loathsome Mogrim." This game is split into chapters or tales of different stories in the worktable that the characters experience on the Midnight Walk. Looking on the ground are literal human animated heads, and speaking to them they just insult us for having bodies and limbs, calling us somebody while they are nobody because they have no body.
You're somebody, huh? On your tall legs, with your long snake-like arms. Get that limb tree. Look at those two arms swinging around. Disgusting. Don't touch me, you limb tree.
The vibe of this place matches old LucasArts games like Grim Fandango and Monkey Island. Very similar humor and even music.
You get out of here.
One of the heads, however, talks about the foretelling of the return of the bodies. So naturally we are intrigued why talking heads are mocking us. But for now we explore some more and find one head not insulting us, but just going on about how much he loves his favorite stick.
Oh, look at this fancy stick. It's my favorite stick in the whole wide world. It's the best one in my collection. I got no better stick than this stick. Can't believe I found this stick. Oh, it's a keeper. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at that stick. Oh, sticks. I love sticks. I can't get enough of them. But this one is the best by far. Oh, I love it so much. I'm gonna keep it forever and ever. It's gonna be on my tombstone. I love this stick. I can't believe I found it. Where did I find it? Oh, it's just the best. I can't believe I found this stick. I'm keeping it. Oh, look at this stick.
So obviously we take the paper stick, which kind of ruins this head's entire life, but he can't exactly run after us because he doesn't have any legs.
My stick, my favorite stick.
They took everything from us. Again.
As we go to put the stick in the lever, a massive head appears, growling at us.
Somebody approaches Nobodyville? Your wretched limbs, an affront to nobodiness. Unless your fire can prove itself useful, there will be no passage for you, limb tree. Go away.
With the lever, we do a quick puzzle lighting up all the candles by moving the levers, which activate a different candle to light, with all of them burning. The head gatekeeper tells us he has a Mogrim problem, and lets them enter Nobodyville, a small village filled with the aggressive heads disgusted by our limbs. We arrive at the Court of Heads, where the head master makes some crazy claims about us, burning them all.
Here to set us on fire. Oh, well, you can't. We are too many. You can't burn all of us. We would defeat you. Oh, defeat you easily. What are you doing? Stop doing whatever it is you're trying to do. You pick up your little fire devil and go away.
However, we light the fire in the middle, which amazes them all. They mention that the bodies were banished for using fire for war, and repeat the phrase, mind over body. We can see the symbolism here, removing the actions of what the body did from the brain, obviously with a more fantastical element. As we continue to get berated and demanded to leave, suddenly the Mulgrim appears, attracted to the fire, and proceeds to eat the headmaster. The role of headmaster then swiftly gets taken over by someone a bit more reasonable, who tells us if we get rid of the Mulgrim for them, we will be able to pass through Nobodyville and continue our midnight walk. The head then produces a gun or a matchlock from its mouth. So another gameplay mechanic is introduced, the matchlock. Load it up with matches and fire 3 times and you can light up things from far away. It can also stun any enemies, but it can't kill any. It's not the worst thing, but it's certainly not the best. But it does look cool. Exploring, we find a guillotine and a shell phone, with the records of the heads getting cut off the bodies and banished. It's pretty brutal to see that's how they got separated.
Mind over body! Mind over body! Mind over body!
Our goal is to hunt this Mulgrim, and Potboy has a flying helicopter machine, I guess. That might be how the heads get around. We latch onto it as well and get flown over tall mushrooms and houses for the heads, before landing in a dark swamp, catching the glimpse of something crawling on 4 legs in the distance. Warning signs tell us we are at the Mulgrim's area and we have to be careful. A shell phone nearby talks about a bird creature who feeds on tragic tales and lives on the moon.
The mushrooms whisper of a new bird in down. They tell us her nest lies beyond the cold, cold moon. And she came here to witness tragedies. She feeds on these tales, you see, sucking their fire dry like marrow from a bone. Her eyes are on us now. Like a vulture she waits, knowing that we somebodies are about to tear each other apart.
We light up the door and enter the Mulgrim's area. However, opening the gate, the Mulgrim comes rushing out and grabs Potboy, dragging him back into what we can assume is her lair. We find a map nearby of the Mulgrim swamps, and peering through the windows, we see Potboy in the mouth of the Mulgrim, getting shaken about but not eaten, beside what looks like a large cauldron. A glowing eye appears before us, revealing a passage into the Mulgrim's lair, through the tunnels of glowing mushrooms and crawler eggs, but also a pair of matches which we can use to light a candle, distracting the crawler and sneaking past it. We spot the Mulgrim and are fully inside, so now all we need to do is find a way to save Potboy. Weirdly, the Mulgrim doesn't want to eat Potboy, leaving him beside the cauldron. We then get shown a dead Mulgrim corpse nearby that the female one is crying over. Does the Mulgrim think Potboy can revive this dead one somehow? We literally go up to him and he follows us again, so with him saved and the Mulgrim distracted, we start lighting up the candles nearby, while also hiding from the Mulgrim. Lighting the final one, it opens the door out which the Mulgrim goes to investigate. We exit the Mulgrim lair and a soul goes into a dead body. A body with no head.
Oh, my neck hearkens the anguished howls of the Mulgrim, and the bitter patter of feet. A somebody and its flame, albeit a small one. 'Tis enough, perhaps. The Mulgrim's precious shards, they must be returned to her lair, to her cauldron. Only then may the cleansing fire burn.
We don't have much time though as the Morgrim appears and charges at us, causing the burnt one to hide in the burrows. Barely escaping the Morgrim as it tries to fit through. Following more souls, they lead us to ghost masks that hide away and we now have to obviously go find them. This involves a lot of blinking and listening for sounds when we are near.
The body stands their approach over the mountain vein and fighting.
We ragdolls observe, we record, and we mimic.
Their faces wear masks they do not know
What the sordid yearning hides behind.
The chance will tell. We put on a mask, we perform, and we put on a show.
Finding one of the masks and reading the description, it talks about the Sambodian conquerors of the old. See, Midnight Walk's story loves to have the world building be discovered by the player. While it does tell you what you need to know, it does leave some info for players to find on their own, and that's honestly a perfect way of doing video game horror storytelling. The mask causes the ragdolls to start dancing. We do the same thing to find the other masks, and they all perform some kind of ritual with the souls and a big eye. All this births a Morgrim shard out of the black smog. With one shard down and 2 more to go, we spot a talking thing in a can. It asks us to take it away from the Morgrim and closer to Nobodyville. It then reveals itself to be one of the heads. The head also has a shard from the Morgrim's cauldron, so we kinda have to help the head, or we could smash it to pieces and get the shard. As we head back though, we spot one of the helicopter head things in front of us, so we take a ride on it and get flown up a small mountain and greeted by a creature called MoonHood.
Good evening. Or is it morning or afternoon? Hard to tell without a sun, isn't it? No, it is most certainly night, or moonbirds hooting wouldn't make sense at all. Speaking of sense, will you help an old bird find some in this story? Fire up these dusty murals in the right order, and you will receive a present, a little gift, yes.
The thing we were warned about. It wants us to clean up an old mural. We have to basically light up each one in order by looking at the events drawn. The first one starts with Once Upon a Time, so, well, that's obviously the start. But MoonHood narrates the story as the Morgrims actually living at first in peace, changing how we thought about the scary creature. We light them in order, and the MoonHood, who we get to see a full view of, tells us the story. The MoonHood creature has a wicked Joker-like grin, black feathers with red tips, and red blood-like slits for eyes with no pupil, just black, soulless eyes, and a long pointy nose. The MoonHood story explains how the Morgrims stayed beside the fire and were then attacked by the violent somebodies for sport, but who then took the fire from them, causing the peaceful Morgrims to not exactly be peaceful anymore. And when the somebodies had the fire, they fought each other. With the heads of the somebodies seeing what the bodies were doing, they cut themselves from their own bodies in an act called the Great Beheading.
And organized a great beheading. And so it was that somebodies became nobodies, and the bodies were exiled. A time of peace would ensue, or so the headlings thought.
However, the headlings, as they were now called, were attacked in revenge by the last living Morgrim, who was waiting and planning her revenge. And since they're heads, they couldn't exactly fight back. MoonHood thanks us for feeding her, since she feeds on tragic stories, like most Redditors.
Storied meal indeed. MoonHood thanks you for feeding her, and proudly upholds the promise. A gift. A shard from the Morgrim's own cauldron. It looked so
shiny in the moonlight. Moonbirds simply had to take it.
Now with 2 shards, we just need to get the head back to the body. So we exit by entering a cupboard, an interesting way to get back since it's bigger on the inside and resembles the walking we did at the very start of the game. We avoid more Mulgrim chases and reunite the head with the body. The somebody now tells us about the guilt they feel for everything they did.
Yeah, I stole it. Oh, I thought I could maybe buy me some kind of ticket away from, well, everything. Start anew, you know? A good head on a pair of healthy, strong shoulders. Eyes on the horizon. Gosh, the horizon. Do you know I haven't seen it once since I lost my body? I really do miss my body. It's a real shame when you think about it, you know? The things that we do to ourselves, to one another. What we did to her, kind. All in the name of some sort of control. Doesn't make sense. Anyway, I guess I'm sad. Sad and sorry.
There is one funny thing that happens when you speak to them again, though. They just completely change voice.
The ragdoll's whisper of one shard kept by the dark itself. Another was stolen by the greedy moonbird up in the hilltops. The last one, perhaps the cowardly head knows.
Entering the Mulgrim's lair and reaching the cauldron, we restore the shards and the cauldron lifts into the air as Potboy shoots his flame, igniting it. It burns the layer top and shows the stars as the Mulgrim returns to look at the cauldron, now once again brimming with light. The dead male Mulgrim now disappears into ash, and the female one is finally able to move on from her grief. The narrator then explains the true story of the Mulgrim.
She'd never been much for company until she had met the other one. He had shimmering scales, an appetite for life, and carried a faint scent of rotting leaves she found irresistible. Oh, how they used to laugh at the distant stars, bitterly, together.
The Mulgrim at first is seen as a scary creature that would chase and eat us. It's actually the victim in this story. One of the ways the game cleverly subverts known horror tropes to tell meaningful stories, while not losing the element of fear. And the tale of the loathsome Mulgrim was all about the bitter cycle of violence, acts of vengeance that just ultimately creates more suffering. Monsters that were never at heart evil or cruel, in fact the opposite, peaceful, until they were wronged. Despite their scary looks, Mulgrims are not truly scary at all. The splitting of the mind from the body also shows the long effects this violence had on the people behind it. As a way to cope with the guilt they felt, they literally removed and blamed it on their bodies, especially after the somebodies turned on each other out of their own need for violence. Their desire to forget their history and blame it not entirely on themselves as a whole, but on one part of themselves in this supernatural way, is to handle their guilt on killing each other and, eventually, for what they did to the Mulgrim. Returning to the Headmaster Council, the Mulgrim is no longer howling. The Headmaster then goes to discuss if the bodies should return, much to the dismay of the other heads.
Would it be time for the bodies to return? We must convene on this matter, and you and your wandering flame must now leave through our gates and keep on walking the midnight walk to Moon Mountain.
Now with the town gate, we can pass through back on our walk to Moon Mountain. The heads now talk about how the bodies could be returning, and they don't just insult us. The way back to the Midnight Walk, we go under crawler enemies, skeletons, and it's like a graveyard, like the elephant graveyard in Lion King. How these things die? I don't know. I didn't think they needed to eat, but maybe they do. Maybe they need to consume light to be able to live. We listen to another shell phone talking about the Mulgrim hunt and all the events that led to the Great Beheading. Back on the walk, we meet the Soul Fisher sleeping again, and he gives us more advice.
A little swamp detour, huh? Hope the heads didn't give you too much trouble. At least your head looks attached to its shoulders and your friend's is, well, burning. So do not despair. should you once again lose your way along the midnight walk, you're probably meant to. The body can be a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. Protect the spark. Find its home, won't you?
The more we walk down, the more we see the bodies returning to Nobodyville. Walking in a line, it seems the heads came to the conclusion, and since they were all part of one big body, they can find their way home. Something very unique about the shell phone is that even non-speaking creatures can communicate in it. Such as this next phone, which lets us hear what the Mulgrams say.
We Mulgrams have a special relationship with fire. We do not cook over it, we do not shed tales around it. We care not for its warmth. Ours is a different connection entirely. Fire is our window to truth and into the world beyond clay, to which we must return. We are noble beings, bringers of bugs, slime, and mushrooms to help decompose the old and to bring about the new. We are the caretakers of this world, and woe be to those who seek to end us, for they seek to end themselves.
It's interesting that they are aware the world is made of clay and not just the style of the game, but the literal ground and objects and people inhabiting it are made of clay. Potboy, however, comes across a horrible sight, and that's another Potboy, hardened, cracked, and for all intents and purposes, dead. This answers one of the questions that we had. There were more Potboys. So if that light of Potboy goes out, then I guess this is what happens. We find the soothsayers again, and they talk about one of the other mysteries of the story, the sun vanishing.
Was the day when the sun vanished. The waters dried up, birds went quiet, and the dark itself seeped unchecked into the worktable as the cold, chewed paper moon rose over the mountain. The night that followed would be long as the midnight walk. The burnt one was there. You do not remember, but you feel it, don't you? You are reborn when need arises.
But what's really interesting is the soothsayers say the burnt one was there, suggesting our character might be going through an endless cycle. Also telling us we don't have the memory of it, but we do have the feeling of it, which to me is the feeling of being burnt, hence our name being the burnt one. Our rebirth theory proves true, telling us our character does get reborn when something is needed. In this case, getting the last Potboy to Moon Mountain. The walk is now rainy, and up ahead is a weeping mask granny creature, with many wooded masks on her back, holding an umbrella. The inhabitants of this world are so creative and creepy and just really unique, and they were all made as actual clay models for the game. And I've got to say, and you've probably noticed by now, the music in this game is phenomenal. A perfect tone and atmosphere is created to match with the visuals. I just love music in games so much. Stepping into Halsey, we view our collectible figures so far, reading up how the ragdolls were only an echo of the two-legged ones, and it only comes to life with masks, which is kind of a cursed existence when you think about it. Then the soothsayers and how they actually jump from different work tables to make sure fate stays the same. As we leave the house, a very tall lady figure with a bindle walks the other way from us. Her face is kind of like a starfish. Another shell phone we find talks to us of another Lightbringer, possibly the one whose dead Potboy we found earlier. He describes the responsibility and his failure to protect it, a grim reminder of what will happen to us if we don't succeed in getting Potboy to Moon Mountain.
No matter how much I fed it, it kept on
growing and growing, and one day it got big enough to start walking the long road. I didn't guide it. It dragged me along for the ride. I followed it for a long time. Would the road ever end? What was the point of the walk? Things kind of spiraled. Road took me on dangerous detours that didn't make sense. Before I knew it, my flame began to fade until it... Well, I don't think I was meant to carry this flame.
The walk takes us down winding paths with trees bending inward, so we see a big cat statue with a bell blocking our way forward. It starts to snow as the bell of the cat statue chimes when we enter into the icy caverns. The narrator then starts talking about the story of a cat looking for warmth.
Dark cave. Step into my abode, offer the dark. It will warm you if you surrender your wants.
The cave is an abandoned minecart track, and going down the long pathway, the place starts to shake and the lights start to dim. We find a moonbird figure, and the description is very interesting. It's also born anew. However, each time, the sun dies. So the sun vanishing wasn't a one-time thing, or maybe in this worktable it's the first time it's happened. And the burnt one can exist on many worktables. Another shell phone speaks about the creator of the worktable taking the creativity from the darkness, but not giving back fire, just taking it.
The story goes of a nameless maker who pulled creative spark from the dark itself without giving it fire. With his dark source, he managed to create swaths of land in no time. The dark itself waited for a gift of fire, but the maker just kept on taking. Too busy building his crooked fences and watchtowers, kept his fire locked away in his chest. One day, he decided to create the first people to inhabit and appreciate his creation. It was then that the dark corrupted the maker's clay, guided his greedy hands into creating not people, but the first of the fire-eating crawlers. And they crawled into this world absolutely starving.
And this corrupted the maker's clay, which resulted in the creation of the terrifying crawler creatures who hunger for the fire that was taken from the darkness. The pathway is almost pure black now, following the tracks in the ground. A sheeted creature on 4 legs charges at us, but sinks into the ground. I don't know if this was a glitch, it could have been. We keep running, blinking at all the statues to reveal more paths, and eventually crawl through a hole to escape as it crumbles behind us. No going back now, only forward. We get more of the story of the cat.
The dark's eyes were much too big and watchful for the cat's liking. She went on to find warmth somewhere else.
Another gameplay mechanic is introduced here, the cold, and the screen freezes up if we aren't beside Potboy's flame or a lit candle, and that will ultimately cause our character to freeze to death. Thankfully, we can light the candles nearby though. But a cold, windy storm threatens to extinguish that very fire. Hiding behind rocks, we make our way over, carefully avoiding the bursts of wind, and light the darkness ahead. We get to the next chapter of the game, the Tale of Coalhaven. The cat's story continues being told, but we see a ghostly spirit in front of us as we enter the cold, seemingly abandoned town. The dark's ever-watching eyes filled the screen, once again seeking our Potboy's fire. But it doesn't do anything but fall into a well. A shell phone appears beside us, and listening to it, we can hear what we can presume is that spirit girl we caught a glimpse of.
So you and I could talk again. I hope this works, because that was my last one, and well, it's cold now. But it doesn't matter. We can finally talk after everything. So, how are you? Do they have fire where you are? Not the hellish kind, I hope. Is Father there too? I think you should talk to him again. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I know he loves you still. I love you. Still. I can't feel my hands. I can't feel anything.
Just from the way this person speaks, the mother she talks about has passed on. We take the match and give it to the darkness, and out of it comes a key. Solving a quick puzzle, we get a map of the mining town of Coalhaven. Following a spirit glow again, we get led to a gravesite, and a zombie mummy man with a gas mask, I think. It greets us, twisting and contorting out of its coffin. It kind of looks like the mad scientist in Nightmare Before Christmas, but more skinny and lankier, and taller.
You used to run on coal and fire, don't you know? But a thief stole all our matches, wasted them in greed, you see. Now the ghost has come to smite the wicked and punish the thief who killed us. Well, I guess that's it. That's a tour on the house.
However, the matches used to light it were stolen, showing how finite and valuable these matches that we so haphazardly use are, as technically they're the only source of light left apart from, well, Potboy. The zombie mentions a ghost haunts these parts and hunts the wicked and punished the thief, who apparently caused this entire town to die. The entire vibe of this place is gloomy and depressing. Even the warmth we can bring to Coalhaven is just to warm the dead, not the living.
Your flame could bring back warmth to our graves.
We see the ghostly chains of a massive furnace that provided heat for the entire town. We have to reunite the bones of a skeleton with its grave. So time to go bone hunting.
That furnace was the soul of the city. We used to worship it, us coal miners did. Fed it trees and fire like it was a hungry, angry god. Bones are longing for their grave. I can't move, I can't do what I used to, but you have burnt clay. You're still evil. Your hands idle.
The green soul leading our way continues, and we hear more of the story of the cat. So the crone was going to cut the cat's fur for warmth or kill it. This town seems to have gone into desperation. Without the furnace, we can presume whoever lived here fled and abandoned it or died in the cold. Finding coffins around the place, we open it up and there's a big red glowing eye. We blink at it and the red eye ghost creature starts coming towards us. But we quickly blink again, and we hear the echoey voice of a girl telling us to light the match. Lighting this match, however, it's a blue flame, and a ghostly voice tells us to listen for the bones. If we close our eyes, we can hear it rattling around in a coffin, and we hear something speaking about us, the burnt one. Another red eye, but this time we awake and see a moving corpse that only says one word.
Listen.
More coffins, more red eyes, more listening. Finally, after some time, the corpse says, over there, and a stone door appears. But if we take a look to the left, we see a Hans Christian Andersen book. Now he's a famous author who wrote a story called The Little Match Girl, which this chapter takes a lot of inspiration from. Blinking at the eye though, we're transported into a crypt. No escape, just coffins, and pure darkness. And a very narrow space, not good for claustrophobics. The coffins speak of the thief. But are we the thief? This is technically grave robbing. Some of the bodies in the coffins have now left the coffin, but they're not speaking, they're just kind of moving around. We search more and all we find is another big glowing red eye, which transports us further into the crypt. We find something resembling a prison cell in a crypt, which is very odd when you think about it. And some kind of creature is crawling around inside, which turns out to be a crawler. Now, why a crawler is in here of all places, I don't know, but we can't get inside. So we explore more coffins and find the bone.
It killed us all.
The whole cavern goes dark now, apart from that mad, glowing red eye of the ghost. We blink, and it's gone. And we're back with Potboy in the graveyard. The ghost is strange in this. Does "it killed us all" mean the ghost or the thief? I think it's the thief, because the ghost just seems to be born out of the anger of those who died. I have no evidence-wise, because the game doesn't reveal anything at the moment to confirm this, but it made the most sense symbolically to me at the time. And there's no other creature like this in the game that's described as a ghost. Picking up a bit of paper nearby, it tells us if we find the bones of the thief, we can break the curse of Coalhaven, which, judging from what the mummified corpse keeps saying, seems to be not being able to pass on to the afterlife, just trapped in frozen time, never able to rest, but always feeling the cold. So living in Scotland, another chain of the cauldron breaks, and the corpse tells us how the thief loved the stars.
Would have plucked them out of the sky if it were possible. But the dark itself stole her stars, turned the thief's sky as black as a cup of joe. And so the thief began to steal matches and lit them, hundreds of them, like little stars of her own.
So we learned without the sun and light, the darkness stole the stars for another source of light, and the thief then wasted all the matches to create their own stars, which in turn is the only heat source left for the entire town. So they kind of killed everyone by doing this.
Wherever she sought warmth, it had a price. The miners needed the cat to get rid of the rats, and the vicar wanted her protection from bad luck. Bony hands reached out from all around her, trying to grab her.
After more of the cat story, a lone shell phone is found in the inner part of the town records, the almost religious speech of when they discovered all the matches were stolen.
Whoever did this, oh, the flame warms the righteous, but the wicked who love destruction, the flame burns with a passion. Holy warm the furnace! Feed the thief to the furnace! Feed the thief to the furnace! Coalhaven is doomed! On the wicked the flame shall rain fiery coals and burning sulphur. A scorching wind shall be their lot. Come forth, thief, and confess your hideous crime!
All around this part of the town is just burnt matches, hundreds if not thousands of them buried in the snow. Walking on, we find a ragdoll with a very creeper-looking mask, speaking the memories of what happened. They followed all the burnt matches to find the location of the thief, and in the anger they wanted to burn the thief too.
For what they did. The trail of burnt matches. It leads to the house on the hill. It's them. Burn them like they burnt our home. You've met your match, thief. You'll burn for what you did. No matches, no fire, no Coalhaven. We'll freeze to death because of that thief. Yavin, dead. The thief, dead.
The burnt matches lead to a sole house on the top of a hill, surrounded by trees that reach up infinitely. The house, however, is totally burned and ruined, and it looks like the villagers did take their revenge. Peering through the door, we can see a burnt corpse, but we can't enter the house as it's locked. I mean, we could just go around it, but it's fine. Solving a pretty annoying puzzle with the candles, we get to the mother's death mask, and we can hear of her fate when we put it on the ragdoll.
Ah! It burns! It burns!
I didn't expect to hear her burning to death with the mask. That's a really grim mask.
The fire, did we snuff it out? Did I save them? The house. It's ruined. Well, it wasn't supposed to go down that way. They locked the door, threw the key into the woods. Huh. There was so much anger, and now there's nothing. This body is so uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is a dark, dark story. It's quite understated just how horrible the idea of a corpse having to relive its death from a mask on a body that's just a mimic of humans or two-legged ones. It's also aware that it's dead and failed to save her family, and it knows the body that it's in is not its own,
chase it.
Yeah, that's just torture.
Chase it, grab the key, and when I did, the creature turned around, and its face, it was the face of this whole town.
So we have to go find the key on the monster that, as she said, had the face of the whole town. So that monster might be a manifestation of the anger the village had. We distract some crawlers with the match gun and explore an icy cave. Inside, sleeping crawlers snore, and there's a lot of them. So we have to be sneaky peeky like, without waking them up. Potboy moves ahead and we find a ragdoll holding the key. As we take it and leave, the crawlers begin to wake, emerging from their eggs. We make it through the logs, stopping them from being able to follow us. This path actually leads us back to the house where the mother is.
Please, I want to see my home again.
We go back up the steps to the house and unlock her home. We see the burnt corpse in its entirety now, and the shell phone nearby contains the memories of the father. On the ground, tons of burnt matches, and from this we can work out what happened.
Council says we're running out of matches.
We'll have to harvest more trees then.
I don't like it. Losing the forest like this.
Not like we have a choice.
Mom, Dad!
Oh, girl, you startled me.
They're coming here. All of them.
What's that you're holding?
It's just a match.
The furnace went out because the matches they used to light it were in low supply. The matches are made from the trees, so more matches, less trees. But trees can run out. And the thief who stole the matches was this family's daughter. So the daughter loved the stars so much she stole matches to create her own. Leaving the cursed house, the cat story continues again. So the cat story has caught up with our thief girl who was making the stars with the matches. However, in the present time, the stars have actually appeared again. Maybe it's because Potboy is here.
In her bony little hands, a lit match. What do you think of my star? The girl asked. Isn't it pretty?
Couldn't light the furnace, and the thief paid a terrible price for her burning greed. As the furnace died, one by one, so did we. But before we perished, the dark itself moved into our hollow husk, turning us cold and wicked. If I had a heart, I'd feel great shame for what we did. I'd feel great shame for what we did.
We go closer to the corpse and we can actually see it still has one eye, hyper-realistic of course. But also, not even joking there. We find more ragdolls with masks expressing the guilt they all felt.
The old man showed us the way to their home. He didn't know it was her, otherwise he'd kept it secret. She was his friend, he was his mentor.
I know the thief was to blame, but she was just a child. The anger kept us warm, but only for a spell. Now there's nothing left but cold, sharp guilt. So much guilt. Why aren't I dead? She was miserable and found comfort in fire. What have I done?
Another shell phone is just a recording of the thief humming a song. But slowly we start hearing the same song getting hummed in front of us by an old man creature holding the thief's skull. Now when I say old man, I mean that's what he's called, because he looks like a pale white termite human thingy.
Oh, that voice. What I wouldn't give to hear her sing again.
The termite thing makes it clear what our goal is. It's really not subtle.
Wish I could hear her sing again. Just once. Just once. I could just hear that lullaby one last time. I know I'd be able to move on.
We fully enter the snowy woods now, and a new monster lies in wait. This creature is a mysterious one. It speaks and it looks like a female crawler, but with a spider's back. and it mentions how all it wants is the dead to be silent, but the singing head statue thing annoys it. We have to chase after a very fast bell holding a key, interesting to say the least. We eventually just get transported to it and find the key, but the creature didn't actually chase us or was hostile. So I am kind of confused at this female crawler spider thingy. We get the song catcher, which contains the song the thief sung, and return it to the old man who puts down the skull and listens to the humming on the girl. And once that's done, we pick up the skull and walk away from the old man, who is kind of creepy to me since he legit told an angry mob where the girl lived, which I guess they would find when following the matches, but still, like, a bit of common sense here. And he's also holding a dead girl's skull. Yeah, he's a weirdo. We then get the cat and girl story again, and she offered her last burning match to warm the cat, but the cat rejected the match and went on, remembering her kindness. We then place the final bone in the grave, the skull of the girl. And the final chain of the furnace is broken, and we send Potboy in there to light the big furnace and let the people of Coalhaven finally pass on, breaking the curse. As we do, a blanket ghost appears by the child's grave, and the voice of the girl tells us to take the blanket. Looking at the blanket, it's the ghost that stalked us in the crypt. So it wasn't born from the anger of the villagers, but the anger of the girl for being murdered. We then fully see the green spirit of the girl in full holding her last match as we light it, and she's finally able to pass on, disappearing into blue particles into the sky.
Thank you.
And we hear a cat purring. The big cat statue that blocked the way is now in front of the furnace, opening up the closet with a glowing blue eye that transports us back to the Midnight Walk. And then we get the conclusion of the cat's story. So the cat made it to the furnace and saw what would become of Coalhaven. There really was no happiness in that story. A girl stole matches for an innocent reason, not realizing it would doom the whole town, who in turn their anger burned the girl and her family alive in their house, before slowly dying one by one from the cold, and having no matches, which ironically are around the whole area for gameplay purposes. But they died feeling so much guilt that once the anger died down, something cursed Coalhaven so no spirit could move on. Not fully dead, definitely not alive, just living corpses suffering with the memories and the cold. And the ghost girl spirit turned into a vengeful ghost of anger. However, the burnt one and Potboy managed to break the curse and give the spirits a way to finally rest. A shell phone talks about the Soul Fisher, and how he's been around for so long he's basically mythical.
There's a fella who watches over the Midnight Walk, pointy hat and hollow gaze. He's been around longer than you or I. Some say he was one of the first sculptures to have breath. Some say he's not from around here, but from another maker's work table entirely. Some say he's seen what lies beyond Moon Mountain, but I just think he's lost like the rest of us, and he's waiting for the right one to come along, waiting for something that'll give him that eureka for his song. He keeps his banjo by his side, but he never plays it. Strange, but he's in no hurry. He's got all the time in the world.
We of course find the Soul Fisher sleeping in front of us, waiting, always waiting, to start the fire that will wake him. Potboy actually starts sleeping by the fire, taking a little rest while the Soul Fisher just talks. Strangely, Halsey opens his door for us to enter, so going into the house, it's very creepy, darker than usual, and a big glowing blue eye blinking at us. The darkness itself appears with two mad glowing white eyes. Then more eyes appear and flames, like an oven, sprout from the ground. Everywhere we look is just pure white pairs of eyes and flames. Fire that gets closer before burning us. We wake up, Potboy awake and smiling, and us outside of Halsey. It looks like we had a nightmare. However, the environment around us has completely changed, and a massive, giant hand reaches around, grabbing Halsey and walking away into the distance. Well, we need to go save Halsey now. So we walk through what seems to be a city made of paper, and walk up and see statues holding orange, unnerving eyes. Blinking, it turns into a crawler with a glowing orange eye. We quickly blink and it's frozen again, unblink and it comes alive. Leading one out of a corridor, we freeze it so we can progress. The next area requires us to blink to move them onto pressure plates. However, I think a little too late, and when I open my eyes, yeah, not the best outcome. Managing to lure 2 crawlers onto the pressure points with some trial and error and some very close calls, the door opens and we take a Potboy helicopter and get flown down. Arriving in a new place, there's a new shell phone, and this one is very interesting, about the rebirth of the burnt ones.
These sarcophagi are molds, rebirthing the bodies of the burnt one. Failure after failure, they keep coming back. They lie dormant, and then they awake at an appropriate time, during times of dark, to perform a task. The taskmaster unknown, doom spelled on the flip side of a coin. Little dolls in a dollhouse made of matches.
Doom spelled on the flip side of a coin, which suggests our character's fate might be an unfortunate one, should we complete our given task. The speaker of this shell phone is the Moonbird. She's seen multiple different burnt ones in times of dark, suggesting the sun really has been taken and brought back many times. And in the middle, a red hand unclenches with a watching eye, the same one we saw at the start. We pick up paper that tells us about something called Beware the Grinner. Citizens need to hide indoors when grinners are afoot. And let me tell you, the design of the grinners is one of the most creepy, terrifying things from visual and gameplay standpoint. And in front of us, we see what looks like a black skull buried in the sand. Curiosity gets the better of us, and we move closer. And it rises from the sand and has spider-like legs and makes the sound of a winding clock. Until the skull bursts open, and a grinning wide-eyed face charges at us full speed, sprinting, screaming at us with its 6 legs. We hide just in time, then leave to once again walk past it. It awakens again, but we crawl to safety. So that's a brand new enemy that's utterly horrific. We look up and see Moonbird is just watching us, grinning. I think we've had enough grinning things lately. We solve a relatively simple clock puzzle of matching the big one to the alarm clock, and progress onto an alley with searchlights swinging back and forth. Getting seen causes nothing though, and turning a corner we find the massive giant holding Halsey, and wearing some kind of crown made of what looks like buildings. We walk down and Moonbird once again gives us a speech telling us who this giant is.
But behold, a craftsman, one of the first beings ever to wander the clay. Like you, his heart is ashen, barren, yet ripe for tasty stories.
Moonbird sits on a statue that looks like a starfish head-shaped lady we saw on the Midnight Walk path earlier. Surrounded by other crows, lighting the spark, we traverse through a wardrobe and end up gazing upon a stone pumping heart. It's revealed we are inside the craftsman itself. But we can't fully light up the heart, so we find a glowing blue eye. We enter back to ground level, finding another clay lady creature who laments about him not loving us, which feeds Moonbird nearby as she sucks up the despair like Literally. Lighting a rope to open up a door, we follow the flame, and the rope winds around the houses, long and seemingly unending. Suddenly, though, a bullet gets shot at us. So we have a man with a gun and a massive searchlight, and if he spots you, he shoots you. We use Potboy to raise paper figures resembling a stage play. It's like we're in the outdoor theatre. And using the contraption, it provides cover. We sneak under the boards and get behind the mad shooter, and send Potboy into a film projector as a countdown starts and a movie is displayed, called The Craftsman's Heart. The clay ragdolls all sit in the seats, and the shooter, Odd, also begins to watch. The Craftsman's Heart is a silent film made with real-life puppets and clay figures. Since it's a silent film, text is the only way we get things described to us. Since this is a video, I'm going to describe it. The craftsman woke up from a deep sleep to find the sun was gone, though fire remained in his stone clay heart, which just burst with creativity. He started designing the entire city with houses, building roads and all. However, he felt the impressive city felt hollow. The projector then stops, and the mad shooter now speaks about how much he loves stories. All the creations of the city are built without passion, and so create this depressing, gloomy place. And these tortured clay dolls built from sadness to be eternally sad. We go down a manhole cover trying to get to other projectors, and we have to go through the city sewers. There's always a sewer level in games. Lighting candles along the way, this whole place is a nest for grinners. And they start to awaken. But we see an exit, turning to see the grinner charge.
Each of them touched it and described it to one another.
We eventually find another film projector and watch the next part of the movie, The Craftsman's Heart Part 2. The craftsman is looking over his creation but decides he wants to create his magnum opus, his masterpiece, which is the lady with the starfish-shaped head, or now known as the craftsman's daughter, his personal son. And with the fire of his heart, he brings her to life to rule over his city, giving her a crown. All the unfinished, imperfect daughter dolls are all jealous of the daughter, saying she doesn't deserve the crown, and calling her their sister. We walk on and down a long pathway, but a grinner comes rushing round, causing us to panic and dive into a closet. The speed of those things is just horrifying. We find a more open area and hide under a massive typewriter, barely avoiding the rushing grinners screaming and speeding along the outside. They patrol the entire area around us as we try to gain our bearings. We sneak by one and dive into an alleyway, setting Potboy to light a match. That opens up an eye. Who could have seen that coming? We take our chance and find out the burnt rope opened a long path with shelves, but they have absolutely nothing in them. The path eventually comes to a ledge looking down into a small housing area of the city, with daughter statues, but even worse, there's two grinners in a much smaller area to hide in. We jump down and creep around the alleyways, finding blue eyes which open doors to hide in, but also instantly alerts the grinners to our location. Unfortunately, this only lasts so long as our luck runs out. We have to try again, lighting the candles and opening up another door. We then come face to face with the craftsman as he drops another failed daughter doll, constantly trying to recreate his daughter who we actually saw in the path. Potboy gets sent into another projector as part 3 of the movie begins to play. We see the daughter take off her crown, not wanting to rule over the city, having dreams of her own, as she begins to dance. However, the craftsman is angry at this, stating she was meant to rule, placing the crown back on her head, while she keeps trying to reject it.
At these sorry reflections of the daughter, none of them will ever dance, ever feel the warmth of their maker's heart. They can never be enough.
We wander into a flashy-looking cave with, of course, grinners that surround us and... Well, that was a quick death. So this cave is kinda like a maze. We have to quickly hide in closets and navigate around. We eventually find a room in the cave with a shell phone and a statue puzzle. And an unknown talker speaks about hiding in wardrobes and getting over his fear of the dark, finding comfort in its void, empty, but not cold. A place where ideas are born.
Many years later, I don't know what happened, but now I love sitting alone in the dark. I get into the wardrobe, close the doors, and I sit perfectly still. It's like a void, empty, but not cold, where nothing exists and everything is possible.
The cupboard motif interests me here, since if you haven't noticed by now, a lot of what we do is hide in cupboards. We also travel through them to locations, and this idea of finding creativity and inspiration in the darkness seems to be a common theme across the game. Solving a puzzle with switches, we change the daughter to the craftsman statue, and it gives us a helicopter head to fly out with Potboy, taking us to the next movie projector and the Craftsman's Heart Part 4, where they get into an argument over what she wants versus what he wants, and she tries destroying the crown, which saddens the craftsman, and she picks up her bindle, like we saw her carrying earlier, and she leaves the city. This angers the craftsman greatly, who starts breaking apart his city in rage, and that's the end of the movie. You know, it wouldn't get well in Rotten Tomatoes. Because we are the Part 5, it's caught up to present time. Moonbird being fed enough tragedy reminds us of our upcoming fate and disappears.
All the way to your infernal she will be there to gobble up
We then are able to unlock the heart and fill it with fire and creativity once again. With the fire now relit in his heart, he finally sees the other daughter creations, but picks up the statue of his actual daughter, and then grabs his own bindle and he leaves, presumably to go find his daughter and make amends. Back on the walk, it's changed once again, and we meet the soothsayers, who say we are close to our goal. Afterwards, in front of us is one of the most haunting yet peaceful sights. Tons and tons of candles, with matches littered around, and grinners just watching us but not attacking. The music is whimsical, and the burnt one and Potboy start lighting all the candles, Potboy getting more excited with each one lit, running off on his own to light every single candle he sees. Like little fireworks bringing light to the dark world. A dance, if you will, of fire and joy. And Potboy, well, he does start dancing, until one of his flames sets fire to Halsey, and we watch as Halsey burns to a crisp. See, while fire has been a source of light in this world, it's still a deadly and dangerous element that can easily cause destruction, and in this case, unfortunately, our companion Halsey is the victim. Potboy stops dancing, staring in disbelief before running away. We go looking for him and watch him standing sadly on a cliffside. The guilt literally extinguishes his Potboy's flame, and a shot of his head falls off down the cliff. We walk down feeling hopeless, and the darkness's mad eyes appear and produce a slab of Potboy, helping us again. A shell phone nearby tells an interesting story about the dark. The creator himself, while trying to create the face of the dark, which he saw in his nightmares, well, unfortunately that came alive, and it's what the grinners represent, smiling in the darkness, and an attempt at what the darkness's face could be.
He thought he'd glimpsed in his nightmares, but the face wormed itself out of his mind's eye, and instead his twisted sculptures came alive, grinning and many-legged. Thus, the grinners escaped and seeped into this world as a reminder to the maker that there's always something to smile about, even when things don't go the way you hoped.
We pick up the shot of Potboy, now darkened since it comes from, well, the darkness itself, and attach it onto Potboy. His light flames once again as he runs in front of us at full pace, wanting to leave this place. We run right into the Soul Fisher, but Potboy just lights the candle nearby and runs on, wanting to get to wherever he is going very quickly. The Soul Fisher tells us we have a tough decision to make, just like the other burnt ones who aren't around anymore. This decision that the game has been hinting at is one that will ultimately result in our doom, as is the cycle. However, he tells us we should follow our own heart when the time comes.
But they're all long gone. In the end, all there's left to follow is your own heart.
We wander through the next area and it's dusty, with 3 almost looking suns in the distance. However, as we get closer, it's 3 giant hunchbacked creatures that hold them like lanterns on a stick. And ship graveyards with massive anchors lie around. A person starts speaking in a joyful tone though, and we find Potboy sitting by the campfire, listening to a story with a strange humanoid creature wearing a star and moon night hat. She identifies herself as a Merkle, and she reveals what those giant things were, the craftsmen of old holding big electric lamps. This whole world in this game has so many mysteries and potential for just many other things in this Midnight Walk universe. But what the Merkle does say is she was the owner of Halsey, who one day just grew legs and left her.
And would you believe it was my own house leaving me? It had gotten so restless it grew a pair of legs, took a name and went on a hike. Halsey was its name, bless its soul. Houses have no imagination. But I bet it had a grander adventure than I could ever imagine.
Potboy once again is affected by this and runs off, determined now to complete his task.
This little flame is your home, burnt one. Keep them nurtured and safe, and you'll always find yourself in the right place. Through the rain, in the dark, and over Moon Mountain. Look at those stars burning like so many candle lights.
We run to follow Potboy, who's wandered into a cave system, and the dark finally finds and grabs Potboy. And it's here we have my favourite part of the Midnight Walk, because we find out what the darkness actually is, and how it challenges our own beliefs, walking down a literal dark path and lighting the area with matches.
What is the dark? Is it ugly and cruel? Is it a place for monstrosities, for fools lost in the woods? A terrible void where all your nightmares come true. The dark could be a friend, perhaps a space where we might find each other, all of us equal under its cloak. The dark could be an embrace and the release of the old, like taking off a tight shoe, laying bare one's feet and taking a first step onto a new adventure. The dark could be a moment of clarity and calm, a break through icy clouds and the shameful stories we tell ourselves that fetter us to the clay and mud. The dark could be the space and time that we need to recover from the death of a dream and the quiet promise of new beginnings waiting on the other side of grief. In the end, the dark remains a mystery, its secrets locked away behind the stars. But one can rest assured that it is always there, watching, patiently waiting for us to enter it, with fire in our hearts and with eyes wide open.
I'm going to break down this whole speech sentence by sentence because it's just such an interesting topic that I can't think of many games that have spoken about the fear of the dark and the concept of darkness and challenging our initial thoughts on it. When you first hear of a concept like darkness in a game, you associate it with evil, the villains, corruption, decay, and madness and power. And as a storytelling trope, that's what it usually always is. But throughout the game, the dark has been helping us with our goal. If we give the gift of light, it will give us what we need, whether that's a key or even a Potboy shard that brings back his flame. The narrator's speech about what is the dark, is it ugly and cruel, which that's our first thoughts of something called the dark. We are scared of it. But then it subverts the horror we are thinking, making a different suggestion of the darkness being a friend, or more interestingly, a space where everyone is equal. Because in darkness, there is no sight in it, it's just, well, dark. So in pure nothing and darkness, there's, well, nothing but one sense of self. The game, while telling us this, shows us the monsters and creatures in the game, because the darkness doesn't hide monsters, it makes everyone equal. Then it suggests, but the darkness could be a release of the old, and uses comforting words like a blanket or an embrace. Using a metaphor of taking off a tight shoe and then stepping towards progress. This makes darkness seen as a place where transformation happens, a space for ideas and creativity, which the line, it being a moment of clarity and calm, supports this idea. In total silence and darkness, we can escape from all the stories and regrets and fears and the guilt that weighs us down, and be able to move on by taking time to reflect. The game uses the absence of the sun to represent this theme of loss and grief, and that the whole world of the Midnight Walk experiences in some way. The speech's final line, however, tells us that the darkness is just one big mystery that will never be solved. We can ask the questions of why and what it is, but the truth is, it's inevitable, and it's always been there. It's always there watching and waiting. But it's not a threat. Just at some point, we all enter it. However, it's also not the end, it's where something new can begin if we carry hope and light, and if we embrace it. And so we come to the last chapter in the game, and the last time we speak with the soothsayers, telling us we are destined to return Potboy home, but the fire is fading, and the burnt one will be loved and forgotten. It's not sounding like we have a happy ending coming for the burnt one.
It has been an honor to watch your journey to the work table's edge. Now go and burn. Burn.
What's interesting is, similar to Silent Hill 2, the monsters have changed. Now no longer an orange glowing eye, but the blue glowing eye. And when we close our eyes, they fully disappear into ash. It's like we've conquered our fear of the dark by just accepting it. The location around us is hands reaching up towards the mountain, worshipping the light that it's meant to emit. A shell phone is nearby, revealing to us how greed was the reason for the removal of the sun.
The first two-legged beings did prosper under the first sun, but it didn't matter how much they bathed in its light. They craved more. They sought to cage the sun, harness its power, and make it theirs. But the makers in their foresight had put the sun far, far away, so far that no creature could reach it. That's why, in their desperation, the two-legged ones began to collect matches, lighting them like minuscule suns of their own. But there are only so many matches in this world, and one day they'll run out, and they shall once again look to the sun.
We jump in the Potboy helicopter and fly towards Moon Mountain. Grinners also have blue eyes now, and they can easily be defeated and turned to ash. But we also see various cracked Potboys who died trying to get to the top of the mountain. As we journey on, the cold winds of the mountain blow dangerous, freezing winds that will kill us and Potboy. Getting into a cave, the whole place is littered with Potboy bodies reaching up, climbing towards the mountain. It's similar imagery to that of a body caught in a volcano and suffocated. Potboy's flame gets extinguished, but we relight it with a match, running and ducking behind whatever cover we can manage. We we run into just pure white, losing track of our Potboy, before emerging at the top of the mountain covered in just pure dark, and what the game has described to us as the moon. Potboy runs ahead and we enter and we see the clay structure encased in clay, resembling a small sun. We try shooting the fire from Potboy into it, but it won't reach it. Then we see the burned remains of Halsey, still alive, walking towards us, as it gives Potboy the lift to be able to burn the clay covering the sun. The flames shoot out repeatedly as the whole area begins to crack and burn. Potboy is extinguishing all of his flame now, and then we get the final choice that we've been hinted out the whole game. Yes, this game has two possible endings, something I'm personally not a fan of in games. So much so I made a video on it, because I prefer one solid ending. However, here it does work with the journey depending on your own idea of what the world of the Midnight Walk or the worktable. I'm going to first show the burn ending and discuss it. Selecting burn, the music unleashes and Potboy burns his flame till it turns blue. Unfortunately, his head cracks open and his inner soul dives into the clave sun and explodes it as the sun is freed and blinds our screen as the burnt one and Halsey burn. We cut to the outside as the sun explodes from within, bringing back light as the hands reach out. The Merkle turns to finally see her dream of seeing the sun come true. The Grinners scream in panic at the light. And the heads and the bodies reunite with the Morgrim also having made peace to gaze at the sun's return. The crawlers hide in panic. The girl of Coalhaven sees the brightest star of all still holding her match. The daughter and the craftsman turn to look, but then carry on, seemingly settled their issues, but traveling somewhere else. And the burnt one who brought back the sun is loved, but ultimately forgotten, as no one will really know of their sacrifice. The Soul Fisher then tells his final speech talking about the creation of the game. Well, that's what I took from it.
Once upon a time, some folk on the other side of this and that had the most strange and beautiful dream. I hope that tonight you caught a glimpse of it, and I wish you the levity and grace to smile in the darkest of times and on the way down your midnight walk.
Now, the burn ending is a great ending. It's what we expected from being told we would have to make a choice and basically conformed to the cycle where we were hinted the sun's been taken away before due to greed of the inhabitants, and the burnt ones in their name always end up getting burnt in whatever task they are given. And it's implied that Potboys are the sun itself contained in the pots. So in the burn ending, we took the sun all the way to Moon Mountain and returned it home, as the name implies. But the Potboy body was obviously destroyed, and as the sun, it's just providing constant warmth. So it's very bittersweet, but it seems right, and yeah, it's technically right, but it's for these reasons that I actually prefer the stop ending. So let's take a look at what happens if we stop Potboy. This stop ending to me is way more interesting, and it fits with the themes and subversion the game has been constantly giving us throughout the story. Choosing to stop Potboy fails, and Halsey and him fall down, but he did manage to burn it a bit, and the darkness fills the screen as Potboy and Halsey slowly stand. But from the outside, light is emitting from the structure, not the sunlight, but the moonlight, as the hands also reach up, seeking it. The Grinner looks up, and the bodies and the heads and the Morgrims are still reunited, and they gaze at this new form of light. The crawlers rest in their caves, and the Coalhaven girl spirit stares at the stars. The craftsman and the daughter look again, but then continue on, because their story was never part of the sun or moon coming back. And we get to continue on in this ending, with Potboy and Halsey walking in front of us, back on the path, but now brightened by a blue light of the moon. The warmth and sun hasn't returned, but our friends and characters live on, still walking. Okay, so let's break down this ending because it's not too different than returning the sun. So the Midnight Walk itself to me feels like it's representing a walk of grief. I believe this because the characters spoke of the walk as appearing after the sun disappeared, symbolizing the feeling of loss. That's the big theme of the game. Loss. We see how it's affected each character in each individual story in the game. The sun is the goal, to return it or to move on from it. That's essentially what you're choosing in this ending. We know a cycle of burnt ones happens, something takes the sun away, implied to be the makers, and then it's returned many times. We were also told that Potboy is the last of this work table. The last chance for there to be a sun on this particular work table. It asks a question of, if we get the chance, do we try and bring back something that's lost? Or do we try to move on and live without it? There's no right or wrong answer to this question, it depends on how you personally feel. The stop ending is kind of an acceptance of the dark and what the world now is, a place without the sun. But at the same time, we see the characters don't really suffer from this. They've all learned to live without the sun in both endings. They view the sun and the moon pretty much the same because in Coalhaven everyone's already dead. Bringing back the sun doesn't benefit them anymore. For the heads and bodies in Mulgrim, nothing was different, their issues were with each other. The Merkel already talked to us about how they dream of the sun, but the stars are beautiful in their own way. The craftsman and daughter barely care for either. The only thing that really reacts to the sun is the monsters who now panic in fear at the overbearing light. But do the monsters or the crawlers and grinners deserve to be eliminated? They're also creations of the work table. The burn ending is bombastic, hopeful, and for all intents and purposes, the correct moral ending. Whereas the stop ending is more selfish, but not entirely bad. It's the better ending for me, showing that not everything needs to be fixed. And the bond of Potboy, Halsey, and the Burnt One break their cycle of doom and walk on to keep on walking the Midnight Walk. Presumably finding new people to help, bringing back their inner fire of hope and creativity. Because that's what they've been doing the whole game. It's the more peaceful ending. And that's kind of rare in games and stories, to have a calm ending. And while the matches will eventually run out, so does everything eventually. And I didn't want to live in a world without Potboy and Halsey, I'm just going to say, I said at the start. While that's the end of the story of the Midnight Walk, there is extras and collectibles that reveal just a little bit more about the world. Finding all the tapes of who took the sun away, we put it on a projector and get the Merkel story. In this story, we find out the Merkels are very strange things that like to sleep, and when they sleep, they dream a lot. And they also sleep for literal decades. And this time when she did, she saw the sun was gone. So the Merkel then sleeps for another 2 decades, and the sun still isn't back. So we get a time frame of how long the sun is gone if it's the same sun during our time. The Merkel then meets the soul fisher who is literally fishing souls for once. The Merkel keeps asking the question, who took the sun away? He tells her that it might have been the Mulgrim. The Mulgrim attacks her when she goes to ask it though, and she escapes by jumping into the lake. She then finds the crawlers in the cave. The crawlers tell her to go ask the dark itself.
Known only to the dark itself. What are you searching for, little limb tree? They sounded in guttural unison. These are dark days, and your kind does not belong anymore. The Merkel gathered her courage. I am looking for the sun. I know you crawlers eat fire for dinner. Did you eat it?
She finds the eyes of the dark and asks the dark the question, who took the sun away? However, the dark asks the question first. The darkness then explains what it is, in which it's the absence of light. It exists where light isn't. The Merkel describes the dark holding her in a blanket of darkness that's cold and warm at the same time. The Merkel then thinks about her journey and ponders the return of the sun, but comes to the conclusion, its question, she doesn't really need answered. because with the dark, anything is possible. This extra little collectible tale also further tells me that the stop ending is the one that, to me, just fits the best. And I would have loved it if it was the only ending, but it's risky because it's an ending that feels like nothing was accomplished. But like the Merkel's tale, a lot was. The only thing that wasn't was the answer that started the journey. The Midnight Walk caught me completely off guard. I expected a small, weird horror game, something eerie and vague, but what I got was way more emotional than I was expecting. It blends horror, sadness, warmth in a way I've honestly never seen before. At times it's pretty terrifying, but it's also weirdly comforting. Like a dream you just can't explain. But that sticks with you long after the credits roll. The Claymation style is one of the best I think I've seen done in a game. It's also all playable in VR, which is really damn cool. And the story answers questions, but it leaves a lot more. But it's also not unsatisfying in its conclusion. It completely challenges how people view the dark and the darkness and creates a world that at first might seem like a nightmare, but turns out to just be the way the world is. The individual storytelling method of the chapters all being different also kept me captivated throughout the whole game. Though I guess one thing I would wish for is it was just a bit longer. It's a very short game. But I was satisfied all the way through, even if the Craftsman story definitely felt like the weakest of the chapters from a narrative standpoint. It did have some of the most scary gameplay sequences in the whole game though with the Grinners. The Midnight Walk world has so much potential for more, and I hope you enjoyed my analysis and immersive look into its story. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. I do read them all. You know how nice it was to play a good game for once on this channel? It's been quite a while for me. Now the next video I have planned, but isn't 100% confirmed to be happening because stuff can change at a whim, or not work, has the potential to be one of the most interesting and unique videos I've ever done. But after that video, it's the Corpse Party Heavenly Host Saga finale, which is a game that is really painful to play through, but it must be done. And the video is also going to be the most ambitious Corpse Party video I've done yet. It's going to take a bit more time because I'm actually in physical and mental pain while playing this damn game, Corpse Party Blood Drive. If this is the first video of mine you've watched, you should probably click on all these Corpse Party videos I've done. And stay tuned for more immersive analysis on horror games, beloved games, unknown games, weird ass games, and more. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.